You shouldn't have listened.
I took the night shift at Cairnstone Company because it was the only way I could keep my day job and still make rent. The shop sat on a wide, older street just outside downtown. Brick buildings, neon beer signs, the late-night diner across the road, and a bus line that hissed to a stop every half hour like it was out of breath. During the day, Cairnstone Company was clean and bright and busy. At night, it turned into a little island of light in a block that mostly shut down. It was supposed to be easy money. 2 nights a week, Thursday and Saturday from 10 to 2. Walk-ins only. Mostly service workers getting off late, a few college kids, the occasional guy who swore he couldn't sleep unless his fade was perfect. I wasn't new to cutting hair. I'd done it through high school and college, then picked it back up when life got expensive again. Clippers, shears, straight razor, hot towel, muscle memory. Familiar, safe. The first weird thing happened on my second Thursday. I'd locked the front door the way we always did at midnight. The little open sign turned off, the shop officially closed, but we still took late clients if they knocked and we felt like it. I was sweeping hair near chair 2 when I heard the clippers buzz. Not from my station, not from the charging dock, from chair 1. The clippers at chair 1 were sitting on the counter where I'd left them, unplugged. They were the heavy kind with a metal body, the ones that could survive a fall. The buzz wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable, the electric purr and the faint vibration that makes your fingers tingle when you hold them. I walked over, expecting to see the cord dangling, expecting I'd forgotten something obvious. The clippers were still unplugged. The buzzing stopped the moment my hand hovered over them, like they'd gone shy. I stood there a second, annoyed with myself for getting spooked by a tool. Some clippers hold a charge, some motors kick when they settle. I told myself that and went back to sweeping. When I finished, I noticed hair in the sink. That didn't make sense because I'd just cleaned it before closing. Not a lot, just a thin, dark line caught in the drain like someone had rinsed their head over it. I leaned in and pulled it out. It was long, longer than any hair I'd cut that night. It slid between my fingers, almost like wet thread, even though the sink was dry. I tossed it, washed my hands, and went home. The next Saturday, a man came in at 1:17 a.m. I remember the time because I'd already started wiping down my station and I was thinking about sleep. He knocked 3 times, not hard, not desperate, just firm enough to be heard. Through the glass, he looked normal. Mid-30s, work jacket, stubble, tired eyes. The kind of guy who wants to fix one thing about his life before he goes back into it. I unlocked the door and let him in. He didn't smile, didn't make small talk, just sat in chair 1 like he'd been there before, shoulders squared, hands flat on his thighs. He met my eyes in the mirror and said, "Just clean it up." "Sure," I told him. "What are we doing? Shorter on the sides? Taper? Fade?" His gaze stayed on his own reflection, not on me. "Clean it up." It wasn't rude, exactly. More like he was using his words carefully. I draped the cape, snapped it at the neck. I lifted his hair to check texture and length and felt something that made me pause. His hair was dry, but it felt wrong. Not greasy, not dirty. It felt overly slick at the root, like the scalp underneath was damp. When I combed through, the comb snagged slightly as if strands were clinging together. "Been working late?" I asked, trying to be normal. He didn't answer. I turned on the clippers and started at the nape. The first pass felt fine. The second pass, right above his left ear, the clippers caught. Not the blade snagging on thick hair, it was like the hair pulled back against the direction of the cut, like something was resisting. I adjusted angle, slowed down, tried again. The clippers jerked in my hand and jumped forward 1/2 inch. The blade kissed his skin. A thin line of blood appeared along the edge of his ear. "Sorry," I said immediately, reaching for a tissue. He didn't flinch. In the mirror, his expression didn't change at all. He watched the blood bead and roll like it interested him. "It's fine," he said, and his voice sounded too close, like he was speaking right into my ear even though he was facing away. I dabbed the cut and sprayed antiseptic. He didn't react. No sting, no wince, just watched. I finished the cut as fast as I could without making it look rushed. Clean taper, blended sides, squared neckline. I did a quick lineup with the trimmer, then stepped back. "All set." He stood up, took off the cape himself, folded it once like he knew the routine, and placed it on the counter. He pulled a 20 from his wallet, laid it down, and walked out without looking back. When the door shut, the shop felt different. Not colder, not darker, just pressed, like a room after an argument. I checked the chair for blood. None. I checked the cape. None. The tissue I'd used was still damp with red, so I knew it happened. I tried to shake it off. People are weird. Late-night clients are weirder. But after he left, I found hair in the sink again. Long, dark hair stuck in the drain. I didn't cut any long hair that night. Over the next 2 weeks, small things started happening in the shop that I couldn't blame on tiredness. Hair would appear in places it shouldn't, caught in the hinge of the cabinet door, braided around the handle of the broom, woven into the bristles of my neck duster as if someone had deliberately threaded it through. The mirrors fogged in patches even when the air was dry, like someone had breathed on them and wiped the breath away with a palm, leaving a clear smear in the middle. Once, while I was cleaning at 1:40 a.m., the cape on chair 3 lifted slightly, as if someone had pinched it and let it fall. Just a quick flutter. No wind, no door opening. The shop's AC was off at night. I stopped touching things that didn't need to be touched. I cleaned faster. I stopped staying past close if I didn't have a client in the chair. Then, on a Thursday, I found a clump of hair on the counter at chair 1. Not loose clippings, not a small pile, a clump, like someone had pulled it from a head, roots still attached, pale bulbs at the ends. I stood over it with my hands hovering, feeling my pulse in my throat. My first thought was that a client had some kind of scalp condition and I'd missed it. My second thought was that the shop had been broken into and someone had done something disgusting inside. I checked the locks. The back door was still bolted. The front door was still locked. Nothing was disturbed. I threw the clump away, washed my hands 3 times, and told myself if anything else happened, I'd quit. Simple. That Saturday, the man came back. Same time, after 1. Same work jacket, same flat expression. He knocked 3 times. I didn't want to open the door. I felt stupid for thinking that way, but my hand wouldn't move toward the lock. My body had decided something my brain hadn't. He knocked again. Not harder, just patient. I opened. He walked in without looking around, as if the shop belonged to him. Sat in chair 1, same posture, same hands. "Clean it up," he said. My mouth went dry. "You again?" He looked at himself in the mirror. "Clean it up." I wanted to tell him I was closed, that he'd have to come back in the day. I wanted to make an excuse, anything, but I heard myself say, "Okay." I draped the cape, snapped it at his neck, and this time when my fingers touched his hair, I felt it clearly. The dampness wasn't at the scalp. It was in the hair itself. Cold moisture that soaked into my fingertips like I'd touched something left outside overnight. When I combed through, the strands clung together in thin ropes, and and the comb left tracks like it was dragging through something heavier than hair. I swallowed hard and turned on the clippers. The moment the motor started, the shop lights dimmed a fraction. Not a flicker, a drop, like the power draw had spiked. The clippers buzzed louder than they should have. The vibration traveled into my wrist, up my arm. I made the first pass and the hair moved. Not the hair falling away. The hair on the crown of his head shifted sideways, slowly, like someone behind him had combed it with invisible fingers, rearranging it as I cut. I froze. He watched my face in the mirror, and for the first time, the corners of his mouth lifted into something almost like satisfaction. I started, then stopped. I couldn't even form the question without feeling ridiculous. I finished the sides quickly, trying not to look too long at any one thing. I focused on technique: blend, taper, check symmetry, clean neckline. I tried to work around the fact that his hair kept laying itself in unnatural patterns, as if it was being styled by someone else. When I switched to scissors for the top, the shears felt heavy in my hand. Not physically heavier, more like the air around them thickened. I lifted a section with my comb. The hair rose, but not because I lifted it. It rose on its own, straight up, strand by strand, as if static had charged it, except the movement was controlled and slow, not frizzy and random. The strands reached toward the mirror. Then I saw something that made me forget how to breathe. In the mirror, behind his head, there was a hand. Not a shadow, not a reflection glitch. A pale hand with long fingers hovering a few inches above his crown, as if it was holding his hair up for me to cut. My entire body went cold. I blinked hard, expecting it to vanish like an afterimage. It didn't. The hand shifted slightly, fingers spreading as if to show me it was real. The man's eyes stayed on my face. He didn't look surprised. He looked like he'd been waiting for me to notice. My scissors shook. I lowered them slowly, as if the motion had to be slow to not provoke something. I stepped back. The hand retreated, but not upward, into his hair, sinking into it as if hair was water, disappearing beneath the surface. I dropped the comb onto the counter with a clatter that sounded too loud. The man's smile widened just enough to be wrong. "Clean it up," he said again, softer this time, like advice. I wanted to tell him to leave. I wanted to run. Instead, I did the only thing my brain could manage. I finished the haircut. My hands moved like I wasn't in control of them. My eyes avoided the mirror. I kept my focus on the physical: line, blend, symmetry, anything measurable. When I was done, I ripped the cape off and stepped back like it was burning me. "All set," I said, voice strained. He stood up slowly. For the first time, he turned his head slightly, as if listening to something behind him. Then he faced the mirror again and nodded once, satisfied. He left a 20 on the counter. This time, it was wet. A damp rectangle, like it had been held in a cold mouth. He walked out. I locked the door behind him and stood in the middle of the shop, staring at chair 1. The hair on the floor beneath it wasn't normal clippings. It was long strands, whole lengths of hair tangled like they'd been pulled and dropped. And in the sink, of course, there was hair again, more than ever. Long, dark, and wet. I quit the next day. I called Carson, the owner, and told him I couldn't do nights anymore. I didn't explain why. I just said it wasn't working. He was annoyed, but not surprised. He said he'd find someone else. 2 weeks passed. I tried to forget the shop existed. Then Carson called me at 1:55 noon on a Tuesday. His voice sounded tight. "I need you to tell me something." "I already quit," I said. "I know," he snapped, then lowered his voice. Just, did anything weird happen when you were working nights? I didn't answer right away. Carson exhaled. Because my new guy, he got hurt. My stomach sank. How? He said he was cutting a late client, Carson said, words coming faster now like he needed to get them out. Same dude, maybe. He said the hair moved, and then the shears. The shears closed on their own. I felt my hands go numb. It cut him, Carson continued, right across the palm, deep, like he'd grabbed a blade. I swallowed. Did he see a hand? Silence on the line. Then quietly, you saw it too. I didn't say yes, but I didn't deny it. Carson cursed softly. Okay, listen. I'm going over there tonight. I'm closing early. I'm going to clean the place out, get a priest, get whatever, I don't know. I just need this done. Don't, I said before I could stop myself. Don't go alone. He scoffed, trying to sound tough. It's a shop. It's not, I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. It's not just a shop at night. That night, Carson went anyway. He didn't answer his phone after 9:30. At 11:12, I got a text from him, a single photo. It was the shop mirror at chair 1. In the reflection, the chair was empty, but the cape was draped as if someone sat there. And in the mirror, behind the chair, the pale hand rested on the backrest like it was waiting its turn. No face, no body, just the hand. Under the photo, Carson typed, "It's here." Then nothing. I drove there. I know I shouldn't have. I know that was stupid. But once you've seen something impossible, your brain starts making new rules, and one of my new rules was that you don't leave people alone with it. When I pulled up, the shop was dark. The neon sign was off. The street outside was normal, cars passing, headlights sweeping. The diner was still open across the road, warm light and people moving inside. The front door of Carson & Company was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The smell hit me immediately. Bleach, sharp and clean like someone had just poured it everywhere. The shop lights were off, but the mirror lights around chair 1 were on, those round bulbs framing the glass, glowing warm like a dressing room. Chair 1 was occupied, not by a person, by hair. Long, dark hair spread over the seat and draped down the sides like a cape, pooling on the floor in thick ropes. It looked wet, but when I stepped closer, the hair didn't drip. It just shined under the bulbs like oil. Carson wasn't in sight. "Carson?" I called. My voice sounded wrong in that space. The room swallowed it, held it, then let it go. I walked carefully, keeping my eyes off the mirror as much as I could. I checked behind the counter, the break room, the bathroom. The back room door was open. Inside, Carson's jacket lay on the floor. His keys were beside it. The bleach smell was strongest here. I stepped over the jacket and froze. Carson was in the chair in the back room, the old chair we used for storage, not for clients. He was sitting upright, hands on his thighs, mimicking the posture of the late-night man, as if someone had positioned him. His eyes were open, but his gaze was fixed on the corner of the room where we kept spare towels. His lips moved. He was whispering something over and over, like a prayer he didn't know he'd learned. I stepped closer. "Carson, hey, it's me." His head turned slowly toward me. His eyes were glassy, not focused. His mouth kept moving. "What are you saying?" I asked, forcing calm. His voice came out thin and strained, like it had to travel through something to reach me. "Clean it up," he whispered. My stomach dropped. Behind him, on the wall, hair had been threaded into the drywall in neat lines, not thrown, not stuck randomly, woven, like someone had used the wall as a loom. And in the center of it, where the hair crossed and layered, there was a shape, almost like a doorway drawn in strands. The air in the room felt heavy, and my ears popped the way they do when altitude changes. I grabbed Carson's shoulder. The moment my fingers touched him, something grabbed my wrist. Not a hand I could see, a pressure, sudden and crushing, like fingers tightening around bone. My wrist twisted sharply. Pain shot up my arm. I yanked back, but the grip held. I stumbled forward, and my reflection caught in the small mirror on the wall, the one we used for checking fades. In the reflection, there were hands in my hair. Multiple hands, pale and long-fingered, threading through my scalp like they owned it. I screamed and swung my free arm wildly, hitting the mirror. Glass shattered. The grip on my wrist tightened until I thought something would break. Then I felt scissors against my neck, the cold touch of metal at the base of my throat. I froze instantly, every muscle locking. A whisper came from behind my ear, wet breath and a voice that wasn't male or female, not young or old. "Clean it up." The scissors slid upward, not cutting skin, but pressing hard enough to leave a thin line of pain. A promise. My mind scrambled for something practical, something real. I did the only thing I could think of. I reached blindly to the counter and grabbed the spray bottle of disinfectant. I aimed behind me and sprayed. A harsh chemical mist filled the air. The grip on my wrist loosened for half a second, like the thing had flinched. I used that moment to rip my arm free and lunge for Carson. I hooked my arm under his and yanked him up, pulling him toward the door. He moved like dead weight at first, then like someone waking from deep sleep, stumbling, confused, resisting without knowing why. We made it into the main shop. The mirror bulbs around chair 1 flickered, brightening and dimming, as if the mirror was breathing. The hair on chair 1 lifted. Not from wind. It rose in ropes, forming the suggestion of shoulders, a head, a body made entirely of hair and dampness. It wasn't a silhouette. It was texture. Strands tightening into shape, twisting into limbs, reaching. I dragged Carson toward the front door. The shop door slammed shut on its own. The lock clicked. Carson gasped, like he'd finally noticed what was happening. What the hell?" The hair figure moved toward us in a slow, controlled glide, trailing strands that dragged across the floor with a wet sound. Carson shouted something, maybe my name, maybe a prayer. His voice cracked. I grabbed the broom from the corner and swung it at the hair, not expecting it to do anything. The broom bristles caught in the strands. The hair tugged back. Hard. The broom ripped from my hands and flew across the shop, slamming into the wall. Carson backed into the counter, knocking clippers and combs to the floor. The clippers turned on by themselves, buzzing loudly, crawling across the tile like insects toward the pile of hair. I reached for the lock on the front door and yanked. It wouldn't turn. The mirror bulbs flared, and in the mirror, I saw the late-night man sitting calmly in chair 1, watching us. But the chair in front of me was empty. The reflection wasn't reflecting. It was showing me something else. The late-night man smiled in the glass and lifted his hand, his real hand this time not the pale floating one, and pointed at Carson. Carson's head jerked slightly, like he'd been tugged by invisible strings. His mouth opened, and a long strand of dark hair slid out between his lips. I swear it did. Like he was choking on it from the inside. He gagged and clawed at his throat. Hair kept coming, wet and endless, spilling down his chin. I grabbed him and slapped his back hard. He coughed, and a thick rope of hair shot out and dropped to the floor, writhing slightly like it had life. The hair figure surged forward, fast now. Strands whipped toward us like lashes. One wrapped around my forearm, tight as a tourniquet. It burned, not like heat, like friction and pressure cutting circulation. I screamed and tried to pull it off. The strand tightened and pulled me forward toward the mirror. In the glass, the late-night man leaned closer to the reflection as if he could see me through it. His lips formed words with no sound. Clean it up. My body moved without permission, one step, then another, toward the chair. I fought it, digging my heel into the tile. Carson, coughing and shaking, grabbed a pair of shears from the counter and, without thinking, cut the strand around my arm. The shears sliced through hair like it was rope. The strand snapped back, recoiling into the mass. The lights flickered violently. A scream filled the shop, not from a mouth, but from the walls, from the mirrors, from the buzzing clippers. A sound like a room full of people inhaling at once. The front door unlocked. The click was loud and final. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed Carson's arm and hauled him out. We spilled onto the sidewalk under the streetlights, gasping like we'd been underwater. The diner patrons across the road looked up, confused, but nobody moved fast enough to matter. Behind us, Carson and Company's front door swung shut slowly, on its own, like a polite goodbye. Carson vomited on the curb, hair mixed with bile, thick and dark. He sobbed, palms on the pavement, shaking so hard his shoulders bounced. My forearm throbbed where the hair had wrapped it. When I looked down, there were marks, thin red lines circling my skin like bruises from wire. Carson never reopened the shop. He told everyone it was a personal emergency. He sold the lease within the month. The new owners gutted it. New floors, new mirrors, new chairs, new plumbing. People asked me later if I'd heard what happened to the new barbers. I told them no. I was lying. I heard. A guy who came in after hours to clean found hair in the sink. Long, dark hair. Wet. He joked about it online, posted a picture. 2 weeks later, he quit. He shaved his head bald and posted another picture with a caption that just said, "Never again." As for me, I stopped cutting hair completely. Not because I don't miss it. Because sometimes, in the quiet of my apartment at night, I'll be brushing my teeth and I'll see my reflection hesitate, just for a fraction of a second, like the mirror is checking something behind my shoulder. And when I rinse the sink, I'll find a single long strand of dark hair caught in the drain. I live alone. My hair is short, and every time I touch that strand, it feels damp. Cold moisture seeping into my fingertips, like the shop never really let me go. Like I'm still on the schedule. Like I'm just waiting for someone to knock 3 times and ask me, calmly, to clean it up.
When physics claims that something is identical everywhere, it does not do so lightly. It does so only after exhausting every known way of trying to prove the opposite. Identity is not declared by confidence. It is cornered by precision. The question is never simply whether 2 protons look the same, but whether any difference could have escaped detection. That question turns attention away from the particles themselves and toward the tools used to interrogate them. Every measurement in physics is a negotiation with uncertainty. Instruments are never perfect. Environments are never completely isolated. Noise is always present. Precision is achieved not by pretending these limits do not exist, but by understanding them so well that their influence can be separated from the behavior of nature itself. When physicists say protons are identical, they mean that after accounting for every known source of error, no intrinsic difference remains. One of the most powerful arenas for testing proton identity is atomic spectroscopy. When a proton binds with an electron to form hydrogen, the atom can absorb and emit light only at specific frequencies. These frequencies are not arbitrary. They depend sensitively on the proton mass and charge. Even a tiny variation would shift the pattern. Spectroscopy turns these patterns into an audit trail. Every hydrogen atom becomes a witness. Laboratory spectroscopy has reached extraordinary levels of stability. Lasers are locked to reference standards. Environmental disturbances are minimized. Measurements are repeated across time and location. The result is a set of spectral lines that overlap with astonishing consistency. There is no unexplained spread. There is no hidden population of hydrogen atoms behaving differently. The implication is unavoidable. The protons involved are indistinguishable within limits that strain comprehension. Astronomy extends this test far beyond Earth. Light emitted or absorbed by hydrogen in distant regions of the universe carries the same spectral fingerprints. When that light reaches telescopes after traveling for billions of years, it can be compared directly with laboratory measurements. This comparison tests not only spatial uniformity, but temporal stability. The proton properties inferred from ancient light match those measured today. The universe appears to have kept its protons on a tight leash. Another class of experiments focuses on motion rather than light. When protons are confined in electromagnetic traps, their trajectories reveal fundamental ratios involving mass and charge. These ratios can be measured with extreme accuracy because motion can be tracked over long periods. Tiny discrepancies would accumulate and become obvious. Instead, the motion remains consistent. One proton behaves like another, not approximately, but precisely. Magnetic measurements add yet another layer. The proton has spin, and spin couples to magnetic fields in a way that can be probed through.
Me. You can't wander off like that. You scared me. He didn't turn. It's okay, he said. She said it was okay. Who? I asked. My teacher. That made no sense. His teacher wouldn't be up here and certainly wouldn't send him alone. I stepped closer. Ethan, turn around. He obeyed slowly. His face looked wrong. Not injured, not distorted, just blank. His eyes were open, focused on me, but there was no expression behind them, no nervous smile, no flicker of recognition. His mouth was slightly open, like he'd paused mid-sentence and forgotten why he was talking. Are you feeling sick? I asked gently. He tilted his head. And when he spoke again, it wasn't Ethan's voice. It was his teacher's. Same cadence, same phrasing, same tired patience I'd heard 100 times in meetings. He needs to stay here, the voice said, coming out of a 12-year-old's mouth. This is where he learns faster. Every hair on my arm stood up. That's not funny, I said automatically, even as my body screamed that this wasn't a joke. Ethan smiled. Not a child's smile. A tight, practiced curve, like someone remembering how a smile is supposed to look. I took his arm. The moment I touched him, my vision swam. Not dizziness, pressure, like my head was being squeezed from the inside. Ethan, or whatever was using him, jerked backward and screamed. The scream echoed down the corridor, multiplied, bouncing off lockers and doors until it sounded like several voices layered together. Lights flickered. A classroom door at the far end of the hall opened. I let go and staggered back, clutching my head. The pressure eased immediately. Ethan collapsed to his knees, gasping, crying now in his own voice. I didn't think. I grabbed him and ran. We didn't stop until we were back on the second floor, where the air felt normal again, lighter, breathable. Ethan clung to me, sobbing. "What happened?" I asked, kneeling in front of him. He shook his head violently.
"I don't know. I heard her call me."
"Who?" He swallowed.
"The lady from the hallway.
"What lady?"
The one who teaches when teachers are tired."
I reported everything. Administrator's response was swift and surgical. Ethan was sent home. His parents were told he'd had a panic episode. I was told, gently, that stress can cause auditory hallucinations and that the East Wing transition had been challenging for everyone. And then came the quiet warning. The vice principal closed the door, lowered his voice, and said, "Please don't take students to the third floor again." I asked why. He stared at his desk and said, "Because it encourages it." Encourages what? He didn't say. I avoided the East Wing after that, but the corridor didn't avoid me. Over the next month, I started noticing changes in students who had classes near the stairwell. Kids who suddenly spoke differently, used phrases their parents swore they'd never heard at home, mimicked teachers' voices perfectly down to tone and pacing, even mocking speech patterns unconsciously. One girl, Lily, began finishing her sentences with phrases another teacher always used. Another boy corrected his math teacher using her own voice. They all complained of headaches. They all drew pictures of hallways, long hallways with no doors. One afternoon, I stayed late to organize files. It was just me and the custodian in the building. At 6:40 p.m., I heard my own voice echoing faintly from upstairs. "Ms. Carter?" I froze. It was perfect. My pitch, my rhythm, even the slight rasp I get when I'm tired. I didn't answer. "Ms. Carter," the voice said again. "You forgot something." I stood up slowly and backed away from the stairwell. The custodian looked at me. "You hear that too?" "You heard it?" I whispered. He nodded once. "Happens sometimes." "What happens?" He hesitated, then said, "People answering themselves." I quit 2 weeks later. On my last day, I had to return my key to the main office. As I walked down the hall, I felt that pressure again, subtle, testing. At the stairwell, I stopped. I don't know why I looked up. At the top of the stairs, in the shadow where the third floor began, someone was standing. Not a silhouette. A woman. She looked like a teacher from the 1980s. Long skirt, cardigan, sensible shoes. Her face was clear, ordinary, almost kind. She smiled at me and spoke in my voice. "You were very good with them," she said. "You listen." I turned and ran. I never went back. Months later, I learned the East Wing had been closed again, officially for budget reasons. Unofficially, because a substitute teacher collapsed in the third floor corridor during an after-school session. She survived, but she never spoke again. Not because she couldn't, because every time she opened her mouth, another teacher's voice came out instead. Even now, years later, I still have moments where my words don't feel entirely like mine, like I'm borrowing phrasing, tone, rhythm, like something learned how to teach by listening, and it's still waiting for more students. I worked the late shift at Hawthorne Regional Airport for almost 3 years, and for most of that time it was the safest job I'd ever had. Not glamorous, not exciting, but predictable. Hawthorne isn't a major international hub. It's one of those mid-sized American airports that handles domestic flights, mostly business travel and regional connections. 2 terminals, a handful of gates, clean floors, quiet corners, and long stretches of boredom punctuated by announcements and rolling luggage. I was assigned to terminal operations, closing gates, checking unattended areas, coordinating with cleaning crews after the last departures. My shift officially ended at 2 a.m., but in reality, I often stayed later to finish paperwork. Gate B17 was always last, not because it was far, because no one liked being there alone. It sat at the far end of Terminal B, past the food court that shut down by 9 p.m., past a row of restrooms and a darkened gift shop with its metal grate pulled halfway down. The corridor leading to B17 narrowed slightly, almost imperceptibly, and the ceiling dropped just enough to make tall people duck without realizing why. The first strange thing happened during my second month. I was locking the gate after a delayed arrival. The plane had finally unloaded, the jet bridge was empty, and I was rolling the stanchions back into place when the automatic doors behind me slid open. I turned, expecting a late passenger. No one was there. The doors stayed open. I stepped closer, waved my hand in front of the sensor. Nothing. I stepped back. The doors slid shut. I logged it as a sensor issue and moved on. Over the next few weeks, the doors at B17 started opening more often. Always when no one was there. Always after midnight. Maintenance checked the sensors twice, cleaned them, replaced one. The problem persisted. Then came the escalator. There was a short escalator near B17 that led down to baggage claim access. It was set to go down at night, standard procedure. One night, as I walked past, it reversed direction on its own. Not suddenly. Slowly. Like someone had pressed the button deliberately. I stood there watching the steps roll upward, heart thudding, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. I radioed it in. B17 escalator reversed again, I said. There was a pause on the other end. Then my supervisor replied, "You sure you didn't hit the switch?" "I'm sure." Another pause. "Log it." That was the pattern. Everything at B17 behaved like it was being used. Not broken, not malfunctioning. Used. The night the injury happened, I was alone in the terminal. Cleaning had finished early. TSA had cleared out. The last announcement echoed and faded, leaving that hollow post-midnight quiet that airports get. The kind where your footsteps sound louder than they should. I was finishing my checklist at B16 when the lights at B17 dimmed. Not off, just dimmer. I sighed, grabbed my radio, and walked down the corridor. Halfway there, I heard footsteps. Not echoes of my own. Too slow. Too deliberate. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I took another step. They resumed, one beat behind me. My skin prickled. "This is stupid," I muttered, forcing myself forward. The gate area was empty when I reached it. Chairs lined up neatly. The jet bridge sealed. The monitor above the desk still displayed the last flight number frozen in time. I leaned over the counter to turn off the screen. That's when the automatic doors opened behind me. I spun around. No one. But the doors stayed open. Cold air rolled in from the jet bridge side, carrying a smell I didn't recognize. Not fuel, not cleaning chemicals. Something metallic. I reached for the door control panel. Behind me, the escalator started moving. Downward, this time. Fast. The sound was wrong. Louder, harsher than usual, like the gears were grinding under strain. I turned just in time to see something on the escalator. A shadow, low and wide, riding the steps upward against the direction of movement. Not a silhouette. A shape defined by the absence of light, like it was bending the brightness around it. I stumbled back, heart slamming in my chest. The escalator reversed direction again, jerking violently, and the shadow surged upward with it. I ran. I didn't make it far. The automatic doors slammed shut in front of me. Not slid, slammed. The sound cracked through the empty terminal like a gunshot. I skidded to a stop, palms hitting the glass. "Open! Open!" The sensor didn't respond. Behind me, the escalator screeched to a halt. Then it reversed, full speed. I felt it before I saw it, the pressure change, the air pulling backward. Something hit me from behind, hard. I went down, pain exploding through my right arm as it was dragged backward across the tile. I screamed as my forearm was yanked onto the escalator steps. The metal teeth bit into my sleeve, then my skin. I clawed at the floor with my free hand, nails scraping uselessly. The pressure increased, pulling my arm deeper, twisting it at an impossible angle. I remember the sound more than the pain, a wet crunch beneath the mechanical roar. The escalator stopped, abruptly. I collapsed, sobbing, clutching my arm to my chest. The doors in front of me slid open. The terminal lights returned to normal. I lay there until help arrived, shaking uncontrollably. At the hospital, they told me my ulna was fractured and that I'd need surgery. A metal plate, months of recovery. When airport management reviewed the footage, they found something that made everyone quiet. The security cameras covering B-17 had gone offline for exactly 3 minutes. Every other camera in the terminal worked fine. I didn't go back to work after that. I couldn't. Airports make me sick now. The smell, the echo, the way the automatic doors breathe when they open. Months later, during a follow-up appointment, my doctor asked me something strange. "Do you ever feel pressure in your arm?" he said, "like something pulling from the inside?" I nodded slowly. He frowned. "Your plate looks fine. Healing's good. But your scar tissue..." He hesitated. "It's patterned, like it was pressed. Pressed." Sometimes late at night, I wake up with my arm aching, fingers tingling like circulation is being cut off. And in those moments, half asleep, half awake, I can hear it again. The escalator. Moving. Waiting. Because gate B-17 was never closed. It was just paused. And whatever used it that night learned exactly how to pull someone in. I didn't grow up believing in ghosts, and I didn't go looking for them either. I'm an environmental surveyor by training. My work usually involves soil testing, structural mapping, and historical contamination reports. Boring, technical things meant to keep developers out of lawsuits. In 2021, I was contracted to assist with a preliminary survey of an abandoned military airfield in the Midwest, decommissioned shortly after World War II and largely forgotten since. The place didn't even have a proper name anymore. On paperwork, it was just listed as Site H7, one of several auxiliary fields used for aircraft storage, repairs, and pilot training during the war. Most of the buildings had collapsed or been dismantled decades ago. One structure remained intact, Hangar 7. It sat apart from the others, a massive arched shell of corrugated steel and concrete, its doors partially collapsed inward like a broken jaw. Trees had grown up around it, weeds pushing through cracks in the tarmac. From the outside, it looked dead, empty, rusting, harmless. The locals didn't think so. When we stopped at a gas station nearby to grab water, the cashier noticed the site map in my hand and shook his head. "You don't want to be in that one alone," he said. "Why?" I asked. He shrugged. "They never cleared it." I assumed he meant equipment or fuel or bodies in the historical sense. I was wrong. My assignment was simple: photograph the interior, record structural integrity, and identify any environmental hazards. I was supposed to be inside for no more than 40 minutes. I went alone because that's how these jobs usually went. The moment I stepped inside Hangar 7, I felt it. Not fear, pressure. Like the air was heavier, thicker, pressing down on my shoulders and chest. My boots echoed loudly on the concrete floor, the sound bouncing and warping until it felt like someone else was walking just behind me. The hangar smelled wrong. Not rot, not oil. Metal. Old metal. Like a box of tools left in rain for years. Sunlight filtered through gaps in the ceiling, cutting the interior into long, pale strips and deep shadows. Dust hung in the air, unmoving, as if the building itself wasn't breathing. I raised my camera. The viewfinder darkened for a second before adjusting, as if it struggled to focus. That should have been my first warning. I took photos of the walls, the ceiling, the collapsed doors. Everything looked stable enough. Too stable, actually. For a building that old, exposed to decades of weather, it should have been worse. Then I noticed the marks on the floor. Long grooves in the concrete running parallel in pairs, evenly spaced. Not cracks. Impressions. Like something heavy had been dragged repeatedly from the back of the hangar toward the doors, and then back again. I followed them. Near the rear wall, the light faded. The shadows here felt deeper, thicker, like they swallowed sound. My footsteps grew muffled, as if the floor itself absorbed noise. That's when I heard breathing. Slow, controlled, close. I froze, listening. The sound wasn't behind me. It was above me. I tilted my head up. For a moment, I saw nothing, just steel beams, dust, darkness. Then something shifted. Not dropped, shifted. A shape moved between the beams, its outline just barely visible against the dim ceiling. It clung there, unnaturally, like gravity didn't apply to it the same way it did to everything else. I backed up slowly, heart hammering. The breathing followed. Then I felt it. A sudden, crushing pressure against my chest, like an invisible weight had slammed into me. I gasped, stumbling backward, barely keeping my feet. Something hit me again, this time from the side. I went down hard, shoulders smashing into the concrete. Pain flared through my arm, sharp and immediate. I rolled, scrambling, trying to get my bearings. That's when I saw it clearly. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't smoke. It was a figure, tall, impossibly thin, its limbs stretched too long, its body shaped like it had once been human and then reworked. Its surface wasn't solid. It looked like it was formed from layers of darkness and dust, packed together into something that could move. And it was wearing impressions of clothing. Not clothes, impressions. As if uniforms had once been pressed into it so many times that the shapes remained. Creases where sleeves should be, outlines of boots, the suggestion of belts and straps embedded into its form. It lunged. I felt hands, strong, cold, real, grab my legs and drag me across the floor toward the back of the hangar. I screamed, digging my fingers into the concrete, nails tearing, skin splitting. My boots scraped uselessly, following the grooves already carved into the floor. The thing didn't rush. It dragged me with practiced ease, like it had done this before. My head slammed into something hard, a metal crate half buried in debris. Stars exploded behind my eyes. Warm blood ran down my forehead, blurring my vision. The dragging stopped. The pressure lifted. I lay there, gasping, sobbing, every nerve screaming. Then I felt it again. Not pulling, pressing. The weight of something settling onto my back, pinning me to the floor. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe properly. I felt impressions pressing into my skin, lines, shapes, patterns, like something was trying to fit me into itself. I screamed again, the sound tearing out of my throat. The thing leaned closer. I felt its presence against my neck, cold and suffocating. And then, clear as a voice spoken aloud, I understood what it wanted. Not my life. My place. It wasn't hunting. It was replacing. I don't know how long I was there. Seconds felt like minutes, minutes like hours. What saved me was noise. A distant engine. One of my co-workers had driven up to check on me after I missed my scheduled call-in. The sound carried into the hangar, echoing through the steel shell. The pressure lifted instantly. I rolled onto my side, coughing, vomiting, scrambling to my feet despite the pain. I ran, limping, half-blind toward the entrance, every step feeling like something was reaching for me from behind. I burst out into daylight and collapsed onto the tarmac. When I came to, I was in the back of a truck, my coworker's face pale and shaken. "You were screaming," he said, "like someone was killing you." At the hospital, the injuries were bad but survivable. Dislocated shoulder, cracked ribs, deep bruising across my back and legs. The bruises were what unsettled the doctors. They weren't random. They were symmetrical. Parallel marks across my back, shoulders, thighs, like the impression of straps and harnesses. Like someone had worn something over me. The military shut the site down permanently after that. No further surveys, no redevelopment, no explanation. They sealed Hangar 7. No demolition, no cleanup, just fences and warning signs. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Months later, after the bruises faded, I started noticing new marks. Not injuries, imprints. Faint, recurring lines on my skin that appeared overnight and vanished by morning. Always in the same places. Sometimes in the dark, I feel pressure settle onto my back when I'm lying in bed. Heavy, familiar, patient. And when I close my eyes, I see the grooves in the concrete. I understand now. Hangar 7 didn't hold ghosts. It held positions. And something there is still missing one.